tell you a story. I'm gonna ask you all to close your eyes.
Okay, everyone, it's week 12 of the Commissioner's Corner, and did things a little bit different this time, as we normally have a little intro, and then the opening cinematic, and then the actual show. This time, this week's so serious, we couldn't even play around with that. We had to cut right to the chase. Hence that 3-minute teaser trailer for the final week of the MUSL season 2013. Now, as you saw in that trailer, there's obviously one absolutely enormous game this week, and that happens to be against My Providence Power versus William Shatner Face. One game to end everything else, once and for all. The winner of that game wins that conference, and nothing else matters, okay? But, as you saw, there are a lot of other names that were in the second half of that video that still have a lot to play for. Only one conference is actually wrapped up as of right now, and that is the Ron Burgundy Conference with the Gambler, who owes a big thank you to Rob Gronkowski, who single-handedly defeated Matt's Candiru Demon Moose twice, actually, because not only when Gronkowski scored that touchdown did it help Candiru Demon Moose lose that particular game they were in, they also helped the Gambler win, which basically spelled certain doom for Candiru Demon Moose. So now, best thing Candiru Demon Moose can hope for is to get in on the record. They have no chance of winning that conference. So today, all we're going to talk about is playoffs. Only thing that matters at this point. There's 1 week to go. There are still a lot of teams that could make the playoffs, that could still win their conference. Even more teams that could win the playoffs. There's a huge log jam of teams that are like 7-4, for example. So we're going to break it down conference by conference. Sorry about the throat clear there. My tablet won't charge, so I have this amazing netbook here. Feels like I'm back in the early 2000s. Smells like I'm back in the 60s, however, because we have all Triple B's old cameras and comic books up here in Studio A. It smells like a sack of old potatoes. Anyway, so as you know, the Ron Burgundy Conference is decided. End of story. The one thing you might want to consider, perhaps, Gambler, is do you want to just take a week off and not start anyone important? Obviously, you have to start a lineup, because if you don't start a lineup, you get randomized. That could be bad. and just go be content with having that victory, or do you want to try and get a bye in the playoffs? Now, obviously, if you took the week off, that's kind of like a bye anyway, so who knows? You could actually lose and still get a bye, too, so that would be the best case scenario for you. Or do you actually submit a lineup and go out with integrity and try to win and cement that first round bye? So that conference is wrapped up. The Kirk-Lazarus conference is one of the more interesting ones, all right? Basically, it's very simple, potentially. Vic in the Box currently leads that conference. They are, I believe, sorry, this thing's got a horrible screen. Let me tilt it a little bit. There we go. They are currently 8-3 with a 5-2 conference record. All right? So if they win, no matter what else happens, they win the conference. Now, if they lose, however, that's where things get a little bit more complicated. There are currently the Kazoo Crazies, Troy Pulling Out on You, and Tecumseh Titans are all 7-4. So if Vic and Box loses, you would think that any of those three teams could potentially win the conference, but actually that's not true. Because Tecumseh and Kalamazoo, to simplify it down, if Vic loses and Kalamazoo, Troy Pulling Out on You, and Tecumseh all win, then Troy Pulling Out on You would actually win that conference, okay? Because he actually holds the tiebreaker over Vic, and he also has the best record amongst those four teams when they combine everything in. It gets complicated, okay? So, is it possible that Kalamazoo and Tecumseh could still win the conference? Maybe some very, very, very distant way down there, but quite honestly, I wasn't about to go that in depth when I had to spend 4 hours working on that trailer this morning. So, basically, Vic controls his own destiny. Well, he cemented his own destiny, is what it said in that opening trailer. If he loses, however, he could still lose and still win the conference based on what else happens. But if he loses, he opens the door up specifically for Troy Pulling Out on You, potentially for Kalamazoo, potentially for Tecumseh. Those two teams do not fare well in the tiebreakers head-to-head with those other three teams, but there could be potentially a combination of things to have them do it. Because they hold, Kalamazoo's 1-2 against those teams, Tecumseh's 1-2, whereas Troy Pulling Out on You and Vic are 2-1 against the same team. So all depends on who wins, who loses. Bottom line is, if you're one of those teams, throw your best lineup out because you never know what's going to happen. So then we go to the Jeff Spicoli conference. This is pretty nuts too. Okay, basically, Now You See Me, Now You Don't. Frazier's team lost last week. Gronkowski kind of hurt him too. But Potterville also lost, so Potterville missed a golden opportunity to wrap up the conference. And now, technically, Now You See Me, Now You Don't still leads that conference. If they beat the Riverside Raging Rancors, who, by the way, are also playing for massive amounts of points later on that. Unfortunately, Riverside is pretty much eliminated because of the way tiebreakers break down, but they still want to score points because they're actually in fourth place in the point standings. So, Now You See Me, Now You Don't, if they win, regardless of anything else, they win the conference. Okay? If Potterville wins, they have to beat the Cougar Hunters, which, we've already said Cougar's going to submit a lineup, apparently. And Now You See Me, Now You Don't loses, and Show Me Your TD loses. Both of those two teams lose, and Potterville wins. Potterville would win that conference. If Show Me Your TDs wins against the Squadrels, Now You See Me, Now You Don't loses, and Potterville loses, then Show Me Your TDs would theoretically win that conference. Alright? So, it's possible for a lot of teams to win that conference still. I don't believe Squadrels actually have a chance. Unfortunately, I don't think Riverside has a chance either. They may start your best lineup regardless, guys, because you may have a chance. I might have overlooked something, but just looking as it is, those three teams have the best chance of winning based on conference record and everything. So, in tiebreakers. So, the way I have it broken down is even if the Squadrels win, and Now You See Me, Now You Don't, and Potterville win, Show Me Your TVs, or lose, I'm sorry. If Squadrels win, and Now You See Me, Now You Don't, and Potterville loses, Show Me Your TVs, even though they lost to Squadrels this week, would still win the conference. It's complicated, but I'll break it down more when I actually get down to the actual nitty-gritty of it, okay? The Jeff Lebowski conference. This is one that could have been over weeks ago, but Jeff is pulling his best Tom Petty impression. He is free-falling all the way down. He's lost 2 games in a row, opening the door for Nasty Nutria, who has won several games in a row. My wife played the ultimate spoiler. She loves to ruin things. She destroyed Jeff this week by submitting a pretty good lineup. Sean McCoy played it smart, actually. Started a lot of Eagles because they're having buys in week 12, so they went all out and defeated him. Nasty Nutria won, so now Jeff controls his own destiny still yet again. Third time's a charm, perhaps. Is the third time he could win the conference. He has to win. If Dublin wins, he wins the conference and potentially a first-round bye, maybe. If Dublin loses and Nasty Nutria loses, then Dublin still wins that conference. So Dublin needs a loss, or Dublin needs to win their end, loss, and another loss by Nasty Nutria, and they win. If Nasty Nutria wins, however, and Dublin loses, then Nasty Nutria wins the conference, and they have a chance at a first-round bye. Oh, man, my head just exploded all over the place. So then we get to the, and those are the only two teams that can win that conference at this point, but a huge, huge situation there. Now we get to the Birdie Bruce Conference. This is as simple as it gets. Providence Power, William Shatner face, arch rivals in every way possible, go at it head-to-head, winner wins the conference, loser potentially misses the playoffs altogether. Oh my God, it's crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Winner takes all in that game. No one else, even though there's a lot of teams who are like 7-4 right now, none of it matters because of the fact that one of those teams will be 8-4. Actually, hold on. Yeah. There's a lot of teams 7-4. Sorry, there's a lot of teams. We are currently 8-3, I believe. Let me look here. No, that's what it is. I'm looking at the thing. Providence Power, William Shatner Faceable, 7-4 with a 5-2 conference record. So whoever wins that game is going to be 8-4 with a 6-2 conference record. Best case scenario, Tallywhackers, they win. They're 8-4. They still have a 5-3 conference record. So that's why that game determines everything. Now, Tallywhackers, Card Carnival King, you are 7-4, but your conference record just isn't good enough. That's why I said from day one how important conference games are, because now you guys are going to feel the effects. By not winning your conference games, you are eliminated from winning the conference itself. Not necessarily eliminated from getting to the playoffs, but winning that conference. And then we get to the Derek Zoolander Conference, and this is one that, I mean, speak about free-falling. Hell, TDs and Beer makes Jeff's free fall look like a jump off a deck compared to the Eiffel Tower, because this is crazy. TDs and Beer, they were 6-2, number one team in the nation almost the entire year. They have lost 3 straight games, and now they're actually in 3rd place in the conference. So JCPenney, very simple. You win, you're in. End of story. You're 7-4 with a 5-2 conference record. Sag Nasty's notch above top notches, out of absolutely nowhere, have just come storming back, and they technically could win the conference based on if they win this week, JCPenney loses this week, Sag Nasty wins because they'd be 7-5 with a 6-2 conference record. JCPenney would be 7-5 with a 5-3 conference record. So Sag Nasty, bring it, my friend. It is. It's not. I don't believe it is possible for TDs and Beer to win that conference, even if they win. Yeah, because even if TDs and Beer wins and JCPenney loses, they'll be 7-5. He'd have the tiebreaker. So yeah, no matter what, the only team that can beat JCPenney right now is Sag Nasty. So Ben, you can make a return to the playoffs, and I mean, it's possible we could have 2 Millers in the playoffs. Sarah and Ben, look out. So in terms of the other things, in terms of the first round bye, right now there are 3 teams who are 8-3. So congratulations, Magic Mike. Your record from last year being 10-2 will not be broken this year. The Gambler, if he wins, he gets a bye. End of story. If he loses, again, he could potentially get a bye, but it's very unlikely. Vic in the Box, if they win, they get a bye. End of story. Dublin, if they win, they will win that conference, and if either Vic in a Box or Gambler lose in conjunction with Dublin's win, then Dublin would get a bye. Now, where it gets really crazy is Nasty Nutria, and this is nuts. If they win, Dublin loses, and either Vic or the Gambler lose, Nasty Nutria not only win the conference, they would get a first-round bye. Bam! Yeah, man, brains splattered all over the place. So, yeah, that's pretty awesome. So that's, I mean, technically speaking, there are a lot of other teams that could get a first-round bye, depending on if all these teams lose and some teams win. I mean, you're going to have a whole logjam of teams that will be 8-4. If that is the case, we will definitely dive into that during next week's end-of-season wrap-up. which we hopefully will have several special guests here next week for the podcast. So we'll see how that goes. Now, the final seeds are determined by points, okay? And the worst thing that the league wanted was that TDs and Beer have this horrendous drop-off because they are sizably ahead. They're 27 points higher than Derp, who's in second place, also not even in playoff contention now. So, realistically, I mean, if there's any justice in the world whatsoever, TDs and Beer and Derp, they have a sizable lead over the rest of the field. They will probably make the playoffs regardless of anything else. TDs and Beer has 766 points. Derp has 739 points, so it's, 27-point lead over on the second-place team. And then the third-place team is Sag Nasty, 718 points. So, you're talking, almost 40 points from Sag Nasty to TDs and Beer. Is it possible to overcome that? Absolutely. But, realistically, probably, the odds are pretty slim. But, technically speaking, and Sag Nasty can still win the conference legitimately, whereas Derp and TDs and Beer unfortunately cannot. So things are not looking good for the rest of the league, to be perfectly honest with you. But aside from that, I think these other teams still have a outside shot, okay? Riverside would have to outscore TDs and Beer by 56 points or outscore Derp by 29 points. That could easily happen. Derp has 739, Riverside has 710. New Orleans Rock Chucks, you have 701 points, so you're 38 points behind Derp. But if you outscore them by 38 points this week, you would win. Gens Mix, unfortunately you won last week, but unfortunately because of tiebreakers, you have no chance of winning that conference. But you could, if you can outscore Derp by 42 points, I believe it is, you would be okay. Nasty Nutria, you still have a chance of making playoffs. You're down by 47 points, I believe. 47 points. So it's possible. Again, these are pretty high numbers. The last team that would have a chance, I think, would be the Donkey Punchers. They're down by 50 points to Derp. Technically possible. I wouldn't rule you out. So yeah, TDs and Beer and Derp probably going to get those seeds, but Sag Nasty, Riverside, New Orleans, Gens Mix, Nasty Nutria, and Donkey Punchers, all those teams. And there's a big drop-off after Donkey Punchers. That's why I didn't mention them. Not realistically going to happen. Any of those teams, with a little bit of luck, could find themselves in the playoffs. So that's about it for this week's podcast. You know what's going on now. Like I said, Kalamazoo, Tecumseh, teams like that, Squadrils, Riverside, Gens Mix, very, very close. Even TDs and Beer, very, very close. But it does not look like it's even possible for your teams to win. Some of those teams, Kalamazoo, may have an outside chance. I'd have to dig a little bit deeper, but hey, I spent almost my entire morning today. In fact, I've spent every minute of this morning and this afternoon going through these crazy scenarios. I don't see it happening, but it's possible. So tune in next week. We're going to have a nice roundtable discussion about the league, the state of the league, and also the playoff drawing. So have a good one. Peace. I'm going to drink my coffee.